What's going on, guys? So it is an absolutely beautiful afternoon out here at the property. So check this out. So this is the cool little fountain that we had out here whenever we moved here. It's a concrete fountain, really cool. Sucks the water in right there. There's a pump under there. Water pours back out here, and there's also a diverter to drain the pond off that way. But what's really cool about this is what we discovered here. So for the longest time, all of this foliage and grass had grown right up to the edge here. We had absolutely no idea that there was an outer concrete barrier here, and it was stuffed full of pea gravel with these concrete little stepping stones. Literally, everything was covered up completely by growth and sand. So you couldn't see any of it. It was level with the end of the path right there. So we found it when we saw an actual gopher mound over here, and we're probing around for it, and all of a sudden we hit something hard, and we're like, what in the world's going on? We dug it up, and lo and behold, there's a really cool little surround going around this whole area here. Took us a while to get it all excavated. We used the Toro 60 volt tiller to get it all pulled up, but it's all turned out really good. And then over here we have the pond. We have not been able to locate any of our goldfish. We put 30 of them in here. They got pretty big. I'm going to say, they started off maybe about 1 inch long. They got up to about 2.5 inches long. Then we had 2 really big ones in here that were about 1 foot long. But I'm pretty sure they survived the freeze. We've been seeing some sandhill cranes over there. Hopefully the birds haven't eaten the fish. I mean, I doubt they've eaten all of them. But yeah, we have not seen any of them for over a month. We do not know where they could be, but they certainly haven't been coming up to the surface when we feed them. What we're thinking of doing is actually draining the pond down, and if they're in here still, we'll remove them and kind of keep them out of here for a little bit, get this thing relined instead of just using the clay. The clay's kind of fogged everything up and made it dirty, and we just can't see through it anymore. But if we reline it, we'll probably be able to see what's going on. But yeah, that's what's going on over here. So the topic of today's video is solar. So we've had a lot of folks that have asked us about solar. They've asked about the setup that we have, as well as, what's the capacity? What can you actually get out of a solar setup like this? And I wanted to take a moment and explain it because I think a lot of people expect solar to be kind of this miracle worker to provide you power whenever you're off grid all the time. Basically, if you have solar on board and you're out in the middle of nowhere, that you'll have enough power all the time if you have enough of it to be able to power anything you need. And there's some truth behind that, but the main expectation you always have to keep yourself prepared for is the fact that solar capacity or your battery bank drains very quickly. And the question you have to ask is, are you getting enough sunlight through solar panels to replenish your battery system? Because that's ultimately what you're doing. You're taking the sunlight and you're storing it in a battery bank, and then you're using the battery bank. So can you essentially replenish your battery bank or maintain your battery bank as quickly as you are depleting it? And this is a tough question to answer because everything matters. You can see we got a pretty overcast sky here. The sun is starting to go down over there, and we're not getting a heck of a lot of super bright direct sunlight on these panels. Plus, 2 of the panels we have are kind of tilted off this way, and then the other panel's tilted off that way. One panel powers one battery bank up here, and the other panel powers the Go Power battery bank, 500 amp hours worth of battery power that we store in this area, and we did a full video on it. Together it's 570 watts, but that's not exactly how we have ours set up. So if you want to know specifically how our system is capable of maintaining, let me give you some practical information on it. So we have up to 380 watts worth of solar power that can actually feed into the IC3000 inverter charger from Go Power that then provides a charge to the 250 amp hour batteries. And those batteries are the equivalent of having 4 or even 5 normal 100 amp hour batteries. So it's not an insignificant system. If you were to price this out, it would be about a $10,000 system. The reality of it, though, is that almost under any circumstances, if we keep things running inside here and we don't have direct sunlight just blasting those panels, almost anything drains the batteries quicker than it can recharge from the panels. An example would be when we moved the RV from over here to over here, now we don't have 50 amp connection anymore. We had it disconnected for about 3 days, and we turned everything off. We turned off the AC units, we unplugged the refrigerator, and there were just a few things that were running inside of the RV. But even those few things, because it was overcast those 3 days, were actually draining the batteries quicker than they could be recharged by the 2 solar panels. So that's why you see a lot of folks that have these really, really big solar setups on their RVs with, 8 or 9 panels or more. They are using that to be able to maintain their batteries in circumstances where they are out. They don't have a lot of sun, but they have enough sunlight to at least allow them to use some of the basic necessities in their RV. Now, if we were only going to be off grid for 2 to 3 hours, well, the battery packs that are in here can easily handle the load for running the air conditioners, can run, the microwave, can run the refrigerator, all of that stuff. But the challenge with solar is when you're extended camping. Unless, of course, you just have a smaller RV and you don't have nearly as many things that are drawing power off of your system. But again, even mild usage or mild consumption can sometimes outpace the amount of power that you're actually providing back to your batteries. So the benefit of solar on an RV like this, if I don't have some extreme setup, is really the ability for me to maintain my refrigerator while we're traveling, for me to maybe pull over at a rest stop if we need to and turn on the air conditioner and hang out in here for a little while, be able to go out for the day, and as long as we're not concerned about running the air conditioning unit, to be able to have a refrigerator that'll probably last about a day and a half. Things like that. That is the benefit of having solar and a relatively decent sized battery bank on a fifth wheel. If you start running everything you want to camp just like you would camp if you're plugged in full time, you have to have a pretty extreme solar package to be able to support that type of usage. And like ours just isn't capable of it. 380 watts on a good day, that's when the sun is not over there, when it's way up here and it's blasting them. It is charging the system. It's doing a reasonable job of allowing us to essentially replenish the battery banks as we use them, but still, it can be very difficult to maintain them. So, even a small cloud going by can block enough light to prevent your system from replenishing at a rate that can maintain its actual depletion. And that's the big thing that we've noticed. Solar is definitely a cool thing to have. It's great in terms of emergency power, backup power. It's also great in terms of short trips. If you just want to be able to use some of the equipment. If it's a very short trip, it's fine for running air conditioning units, things like that, as long as you have enough of it and you have enough to be able to power the AC units. It's great if you use it in conjunction with something like a generator, right? We have a Cummins Onan generator on board that we can also use to replenish the battery pack, and in turn what's happening is the generator is charging the batteries, which are then being used by the rest of the RV. So we have a really, really good setup in terms of being able to stay out for a relatively long period of time, as long as we're not using things like the air conditioner, or we just understand that at some point, if we're not running the generator, then whatever's in the RV is probably going to deplete the batteries quicker than what the sun is actually going to recharge. Unless we added 3 or 4 more panels, then we would probably be able to almost keep up with some of that. As an example of that, if the refrigerator is drawing 1,000 watts and those 2 panels are providing 380 watts back to the system, well, naturally, the refrigerator is drawing current at a faster rate than what the solar is able to replenish. So a refrigerator, believe it or not, at least this type of refrigerator, can drain the batteries relatively quickly. Everything you plug in, you have to be aware of. So even when we unplugged everything, we still found that there were things causing a pretty good draw. For instance, a small little dehumidifier in there only pulls 2 amps, but then we realized we had a camera in there, a camera in here. We had some little plugs with lights on them plugged in. We probably had 15 to 20 things that we just didn't think about that were still drawing power from the system, and causing small incremental increases in terms of amperage draw, which again can possibly drain your batteries quicker than the system can replenish. So when it comes to solar, again, it depends how you plan on using your RV, how long you plan to need power off grid, and what you're going to be using when you are off grid. That's the best way of saying it. How long? For instance, if you have a little 15 to 20 foot rugged off-road camper, kind of like the Black Series that we had, and you just want to be able to turn lights on, things like that, well, your solar panels would likely easily be able to maintain your battery bank so you can run lights, things like that. If you have a gas electric refrigerator, you'll probably be able to use it for a significant amount of time, and you probably can maintain your batteries to keep that running because it primarily provides cooling through propane. So that may work out for you, but the minute you start talking about like 12-volt compressor style refrigerators, which don't use a heck of a lot of power, but they certainly use more than a gas electric refrigerator, or a full residential refrigerator, or air conditioning units, or other things like a hairdryer, microwave, TVs, things like that, all of that stuff drains power typically faster than most solar systems are able to maintain the battery, unless, again, you build out a custom solar system specifically designed to be able to pull in enough power to maintain your batteries. But for the most part, understanding solar simply means you need to understand you need a lot of it if you truly want to have an off-grid experience and be able to use a lot of the appliances that you would normally use. The more stuff you cut out, the more stuff you're able to live without, the longer your capacity will last because you're pulling less power off of it. But again, just think of the math here. 380 watts worth of power whenever the sun is blasting it. They're perfectly clean. There's no problem with the angle to where the sun is. None of that. Charging a battery bank that's being depleted by something that pulls 1,000 watts. Anyways, guys, sorry to make this video longer than it probably needed to be. I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are like, you made the same point 100 times over, but I tried to do it in a different way. That way, if you're trying to understand what you can do, what you can't do, this may have helped clarify. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.